guys, it's Jessica from Peace Love Books, and today I'm here with the second half of my wrap up for January. So I already did the first half and I read 19 books for that wrap up. It was a lot, so I will link that down below if you haven't checked it out yet. But for the second half of January, I did read 16 books, which is still amazing and a lot, but I'm getting so hot. So it has been so cold in Ohio lately, and now it's 50 and I feel like it's like summer right now, but we're gonna go back down to 0 on Saturday. It's Tuesday when I'm filming this, so it's just been a wild ride in the Midwest lately, especially in Ohio. So I came home to film, put a sweatshirt on, and I feel like I should have put a t-shirt on, but it's okay. I'm gonna go ahead and get through these 16 books that I read in January at the second half. The first one is actually by Gianna Darling, and this had a bit of a snafu with the publication, and I don't think it's available anymore, which I will get into. So it is Beautiful Nightmare by Gianna Darling. I was sent an e-arc of this, and what happened was, I guess Gianna turned it in really close to deadline when they were publishing it, and they had already pushed back the pre-order once and said something was happening with Amazon, so they didn't edit the book before publishing it. My ebook did have errors, but that's pretty normal for a e-arc because they haven't gone through the final round of edits yet, so it did have some typos in it, which I guess made it into the final version. And so people were reporting it to Amazon, so Amazon took it down, and then they decided to pull both books down. So I don't know if this will be going back up. I'm not sure, but this one is book 2 in the duet. It is a Guardian Ward romance, so her mother passes away. She's raising basically her brother on her own because her mom wasn't a great mom in the first place, and she is taken in by her mom's boyfriend, who was only dating her mom for a specific reason, not for love, and it's her and his relationship. He is a scarred hero. He has kind of like a misfit family at this like creepy mansion that he lives at that's so cute, and so this one left on a cliffhanger, and then it's like the final conclusion to this book. Like book 1 left on a cliffhanger. I gave this 4 stars. I still really enjoyed this duet. I think I gave book 1 5 stars. This one, I just wanted a little bit more from it, but I still enjoyed seeing their romance and them confronting who is really their enemy and if they can really trust each other, and it deals with a lot of like family drama, which I always love too. It kind of felt soap opera-y, so this is a really fun duet. Hopefully it goes back up, but I am happy that I read a new book from Gianna. Speaking of Gianna, I finally picked up The Affair, and this is book 1 in her series, and I get so angry when I look at reviews for this and people give it 1 star because it has cheating in it. Do they not know what the word affair means? Because it literally tells you in the title what this book is about. So our heroine is going on vacation before she goes home, and she's been living in France. She's kind of like the child that doesn't get a lot of attention. She doesn't feel like really special, but this guy meets her on a plane and he is instantly captivated by her, and he's like, I need you. But he's in a relationship. He is dating someone, and so he tells her up front he's dating someone, but she's never done that before. So they start a relationship and have this fling on vacation, and it's their romance. And so I liked it. I gave it 4 stars. I feel like there wasn't a lot of outside anything going on. Like we don't even have a cliffhanger really. We just know like this is their affair. Like that's all this book is. And so I wanted a little bit more like given to us to make us want to read book 2, because I know who he's actually dating, but that's not even mentioned in this book, and that's the appeal that I wanted to pick this book up because of that appeal. So I wanted a little bit more stakes, I guess, in this book than that were there, but I really liked watching their development of their romance and her grappling with being in a relationship with someone who's in a relationship. So I really enjoyed it. 4 out of 5 stars. Okay, if I changed locations at all, sorry, I had to charge my battery for like 20 minutes, but I am back and we're gonna get through this. So I just talked about Gianna Darling. Now I'm gonna talk about The Princess Trap by Talia Hibbert. I listened to this book on audio and I was really excited because it's fake dating and royalty. So our heroine works for this like education thing, and our hero is a prince, and he's trying to figure out like where he wants to donate his money. So he's touring her building, sees her, instantly likes her, asks her to lunch. He, though, has had bad experience with the press before, and so they catch them, and he says that she is his fiance. So they have to fake date, fake be engaged, and she has to go back to his homeland and like live with him, I guess, and it was just okay. There are trigger warnings for abuse, so know that going in, but for this one, I feel like 80% of the plot was just them. Sorry, my sister's starting dinner right now, but 80% of the plot was just them like physically together, and then we had the last like 15% was like go 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 with all this extra plot that was going on. And so I feel like just pacing wise I wasn't the biggest fan, and they just like didn't do anything in this book except for just hang out. And so I gave it 3 stars. I was pretty bored by the romance and I did not love it. Then I started my reading vlog for reading BookTube's favorite romances, which I will link down below, and the first one I read was Lola and the Millionaires by Catherine Moon. This is is Reverse Harem, and it is so sweet, and it's Omegaverse, which I've never read before. I feel like this was a good introduction because I get it, like with the beta, alpha, omega kind of dynamic. It very much felt like a werewolf romance, but they were humans. So if you're into paranormal kind of stuff like that, I think you would like this. Lola was in an abusive relationship. She was assaulted by someone, and she's terrified of intimacy with that kind of person, like of the hierarchy of people. And so she meets a guy in a club, really likes him, realizes something about him, freaks out, and then kind of gets entwined into his pack, I guess, and falls for him slowly, and then slowly starts a relationship with the other people in his pack, and it was so sweet. I really, really enjoyed it, but I will say that the conflict I knew was coming didn't come until the end, and it was left as a cliffhanger for book 2, and so I would have liked that to play out a little bit more in book 1 to give us a little bit more substance to the plot other than just the romance, so I gave it 4.5 out of 5 stars, but I loved her dynamic with all the guys. If you liked Lady of Rooksgrave Manor, which is also by Catherine Moon, and how the guys are just like absolutely obsessed with the girl, I think you should pick this one up because it had those same kind of dynamics, but it was still very different than that one because that one had like monsters in it. This one was Omegaverse, and I'm so happy I picked it up. Then for that video, I picked up Hookshot by Kennedy Ryan on audio. I've read book 1, half of 2, and just decided to go into book 3. This is a single parent romance. Our hero is a basketball player, and he is divorced, but his wife is being very annoying, his ex-wife, and he sees our heroine, and he immediately is just like, she is the one for me. Like, there's no one who compares. But they have a lot of external factors that are preventing them from being together. Make sure you know that this has to do with suicide, so that was a very heavy topic in here. This is very emotional book, and I gave it 4.5 out of 5 stars. I really loved our characters and their dynamic together. I think that the beginning went on a little too long. Like, it took us a long time to really get into the flow of the story, so that's why I took 4.5 out of 5 stars for this book. But I enjoyed their dynamics. I loved how obsessed with Lotus he was. Like, I love a smitten hero, and Kennedy Ryan does it so well where it's like there's no one that compares to you, and that's how he felt. But he did have to prioritize other things in his life over her, which was so heartbreaking, but they are destined to be together. So I loved this book so much. Very emotional. 4.5 out of 5 stars. Then I picked up The Fine Print by Lauren Asher, and this one is a enemies to lovers, Grump Sunshine workplace romance at like Disneyland. So our heroine got out of a long-ish relationship, and he had really betrayed her and like stole her idea for a ride and passed it off as his own. So she's working in like the beauty salon, and they're having a contest for ideas because our hero, his grandfather like owned the park, and so the grandfather died and left the 3 sons a message and a task, and our hero's is to implement something new at the park and have it approved by the board, and then he'll get his share of the company. And so he is looking through all these ideas, and they're instantly captivated by her idea, and they had met before at a meeting and did not hit it off well, and so it's very enemies to lovers. He's very much a grump. She's a sunshine. She's just like a ray of sunshine. I really enjoy this one, though I gave it 4 out of 5 stars because it did feel a little bit insta-lovey when we met the halfway point and like the enemies just completely went away, and we didn't get like the magic of the amusement park as much at the second half of the book, and so I still really enjoyed it, but like I was obsessed in the beginning, and then the obsession kind of trickled off at the end. But I am really excited for the second book. I think this book really set up the next couple really well, at least with which brother it's going to be about. So I am excited that I read this, and I think Lauren Asher has potential as an author. Like, I've read 2 books by her. I've given them both 4 stars, so I'm excited to read more by her. Then I read Devil in Disguise by Lisa Kleypas, and this one was such a disappointment. I know people love this book, but it was so boring and so insta-love, and it had so much potential. It had amnesia, a Scottish hero. Our heroine is in charge, I think, of like a shipping company. She is a working woman, very successful, and she meets our hero because he had a problem like with the shipment of his whiskey, and they immediately become smitten with each other within 3 days, already sleeping together, and she's absolutely smitten with him, and then he gets amnesia, and then she helps like take care of him, and they kind of fall for each other a little bit again, and she's like, but he doesn't remember everything that happened, and like it was boring. I thought the amnesia was going to make this really exciting. I was 30% into the book, and I was like, well, the romance has already been kind of like done with, and then he gets amnesia. So like, okay, like this is going to pick things up, and it didn't. And then the ending did my least favorite thing that books do, and I was really angry at the ending for doing that. So I gave it 3 stars, more like 2.5 because of that ending. Like, it makes me want to drop it down another star because I'm like, why did you have to do that? That was completely unnecessary. You had your chance to have this really special happily ever after for this couple, and then you had to throw something in there that negated that moment between them in the book. So It was just annoying and just too slow of a romance for me that I just didn't care. Then I read Unhinged by Onley James, and this one, a 5-star romance. It's a serial killer romance. Like, why would I think anything less of this book? And so our hero is raised to be a killer. He is a psychopath, and when he was young, his father's a doctor, like his adoptive father. Adopted, I believe, 7 boys and harnesses their powers and psychopath tendencies, not powers, but like ability to kill for good. So he gives them like assignments and people to kill, and so they work together. And the family aspect of this was so funny. I loved watching the brothers interact together. But this is Adam's story, and Adam murdered a man when he was like 16, 15, one of his first kills. And the son saw it happen, and the son 10, 12 years later is now after Adam, and he's like, you killed my father. And Adam's like, you want to know why? And that kind of resurfaces a lot of things for the other hero, and they team up together for something. And their romance was so sweet. Like, steamy, but so sweet. And I was obsessed with the fact that it was a dark romance where they're like brutally murdering people with the most wholesome, sweet romance ever, and I was just obsessed with them, and I wanted them to be happy and together, and I loved the other hero's interaction with Adam's family and figuring things out about them, and it was just amazing. 5 stars. Definitely going to continue with the series. Then I picked up The Heir by Sophie Lark, which left me in a book hangover. Like, I was like, I cannot read anything after this book because it was so good. 5 out of 5 stars. I need to go back and read the other series though before continuing on. I should not have started this already. You really should read the Brutal Birthright series, all 6 books before going into these. I've only read books 2 and 1, but Anna is the characters of books 2 daughter, but there's a lot of backstory that I should have read in the other books. You can technically read this as a standalone, but I like to get the full experience, so I'm going to go back and reread those. But mafia romances, this is a mafia college, and so we have Leo and Anna who grew up raised as cousins, but they're not legally cousins. Like, they are not actually related to one another, and lately they've been seeing each other like kind of in a new light, and Leo's been kind of possessive over her, but that nothing's ever happened, and they go to a mafia college together. And then there's Dean, who hates Leo's guts. And I guess there's more backstory to him because I absolutely hated his character, but people, I guess, love his book. Like, I think his book is everyone's favorite. I detested him in this book. But we have a little bit of a love triangle going on, and Leo and Anna kind of ripped apart. And then we also have, what was my favorite, are these challenges that each grade class of the school compete in against each other, and it was just so entertaining, and I love having more of a plot than just the romance, and I loved every second of it. Like, I flew through this book because I could not put it down, and the romance was amazing, and I'm so excited to continue on the series and read more Sophie Lark because I'm literally obsessed with her. I love her writing, I love her books, and the world she creates. The series is hyped for a reason. 5 stars. I love it. Then I read Beautiful Broken Pieces by Catherine Cowles on audio. This one's a small town romance. Our heroine's mother passes away, and so she's heavily grieving the loss of her mom, and so she decides to stay in this small town that she was visiting, and she ends up renting out this house that these people own, and she falls for their son who owns this house, and she kind of gets close to the son's sister, and she gets a job in town at like a tea shop, and it's just her overcoming her grief and falling for the hero. The hero had lost someone in his past as well, and he is a sheriff, and so there is also a serial killer like running around loose that they're trying to find, and I give this one 3 stars. It was just okay. I think I gave it 3.5. So like, the romance was sweet enough, nothing special, just your typical small town romance of a woman who's grieving, and then there was this like romantic suspense thrown in, but I feel like the hero was being very annoying with the fact that he did not care about these killings until it was someone he cared about. Like, someone from his past went missing, and he's like, oh, like, we'll find her. Doesn't like try to go looking, doesn't send out a search party. He's just like, oh, it's like, we gotta find where she went. She disappeared. And I was like, okay, but you know there's a killer on the loose. She probably got taken by the killer. But once it was someone important to him, it was like all hands on deck. Everybody's banging down doors trying to find her. And I was like really annoyed with how he would react to only caring when it was someone he cared about, because he was like the sheriff in town. And so that kind of bothered me. And it was just an okay read. I'm excited to read more in this series and more from this author because there's potential. But this one was just like, meh, it was fine. Then I read Hello Stranger by Jade West, and I actually dropped my rating when I wrote my review on Goodreads. This book was so boring. So I went into it thinking it was going to be an amazing, super emotional book. Our hero and our heroine meet on a train, and they instantly connect. She drops her bookmark, and they both read on the train. They read similar things, and so every morning on the train now, they chat about like, oh, what are you reading? What are you reading? And like, they have this moment, but like, neither one of them will say anything more. Our hero's dealing with an ill mother, and he works in palliative care, so it's really just sad. dad, and so he's a very stoic, grumpy hero. She's a sunshine heroine. She also is a nurse, and they end up having a romance. And it was just so predictable, and I feel like it was trying too hard to be sad, and I just like couldn't care. I wasn't invested in the romance. It was so insta-love. I knew what was gonna happen with certain characters. I kind of saw what was coming at the end, and by the time we got to the end, I was like, you're just trying to be sad at this point, and I'm more annoyed than anything. So I'm giving it like a 2.5 star because I just did not care for any of these characters, and I feel so bad saying that because I know people absolutely love this book. It was just okay to me, and I didn't love it. Then I read If the Boot Fits by Rebecca Weatherspoon. This one I read on audio, and it is book 2 in the series. I read book 1 last year, and this one is the actor brothers story. It starts with a one-night stand. Our heroine is a assistant to a like D-list celebrity, and her person she works for though is like really nasty, like she's a nasty person. And so she got to go to an award ceremony and met Sam, our hero, who won an award there. He's an actor, and they spent the night together, and she accidentally takes the wrong bag and takes his trophy with her, and so she has to get it back to him, and then they reconnect at a wedding, and it's their romance. I thought it was just fine. I gave it 3 stars. Like, I didn't really care about the romance. I didn't really care about the characters and the conflict at the end. I was just like listening along, and nothing was special. I feel like I read a lot of just like, there's nothing bad about it, but there's nothing like amazing about it. And so I didn't really care as I was listening. I wasn't like excited to keep on reading. So 3 stars. Like, not bad, but not what I'm dying to read. Then I listened to the audio of She Tempts the Duke by Lorraine Heath. This is the first book in the Lost Lords of Pembroke series. So our 3 heroes are all brothers. We have twins, and then we have the youngest brother, and what happens is their uncle murdered their father and is planning on murdering them. And so our heroine realizes what's happening, and she is their age, and she was, I don't remember the hero's name, Sebastian. So her and Sebastian have been really close as children, and so she realizes what's happening, goes and finds them locked in this tower and lets them out and helps them escape. And they run off, and they're gone for like 15 years, and they've all gone their separate ways, and they've been hiding as like one went off to war, one was living on the streets, and one was living like as on the seas. And so our hero was in the war, and so he is heavily scarred. Like, he can't even use an eye. Like, he's really scarred on his face, and they all feel guilty about leaving each other and like what happened, but they're back in society now. Sebastian's ready to take back the dukedom from his uncle and sees her, but our heroine's engaged. And so it's their romance. I thought this was a lot of fun. I gave it 4 to 5 stars. The romance like didn't end up being my favorite. It got a little slow around the middle, but I really like the angst in there. I love a scarred hero. I love how they ended up falling for each other even though she was engaged. That kind of like ended a little too easily though to me, so I wish there was a little bit more angst in that aspect, but I still really enjoyed the beginning of the series, and that I jumped right into the second book. I read this in 2012. Like, I'm pretty sure I got an arc of it, and yeah, because this came out in 2012 when I was vlogging in college, and I love this book so much, but I don't remember reading it. So I re-listened to the audiobook, so I gave it 5 stars. This one is our ship captain. It's Tristan. He is the twin brother of Sebastian, and our heroine wants to find her fiance, and so she hires a ship, and she's recommended Tristan meets him. She's like, absolutely not. But then Tristan pays double to anybody she asks to take her. So, and like, they're not allowed to take her. He's like, she offers them 200 pounds, he'll give them 400 to not take her. And so she's super frustrated, she has to go. And so he is infatuated with her. She thinks she's just plain. She's like, no one's really called me pretty. I'm nothing special, but he's infatuated with her. So they go on this trip together. They're in close quarters together, and then they have to return home and then sneak around with each other. And it's so good because she is supposed to kind of marry someone, like that plays out in here, and he's just infatuated with her though, and it is so good. I really, really love this one. I give this one 5 stars, and I'm excited to read book 3 in the series. Then I pick up Splendid for Historical Hellions, and I absolutely love this book. This is Julia Quinn's first published novel. It came out in 1966, and our heroine is visiting England, and so she's coming out in society. She's an American. She's with her cousin, and she's supposed to find a husband. She wants an American husband though, because she wants to go back to America and run her father's shipping business. She has very high ambitions. She helps her father with his business. She's very much an independent working woman, but she's wealthy, and so she ends up dressing up as a maid because she wants to help out in the kitchens with her cousin, because her aunt's like planning this huge ball. They don't want anything to do with it. So she runs out to the market as a maid and saves a child and gets run over basically in the process and hits her head, and that ends up being Alex's nephew. And so Alex finds her, thinks she's a maid. Well, they meet at the ball, and he's like, well, you're not a maid. And so he is smitten with her so much, but he's a very alpha hero, and he's like, I'm never gonna be married, women just want my money, I can't trust anybody. And so he attends every single ball of the season just to see her, and he has not done that ever in his life. And I loved how much he was obsessed with her. And the family is so meddling and meddlesome because they try to push them together and don't care if that he ruins her or not, and he keeps on threatening to ruin her because he just can't keep his hands off her. And that to me was so historical, and I loved it. And I know a lot of people had issues with that, but like, I love that aspect of this romance, and I loved how smitten he was with her. And there is just so much in here that I loved. We have a lot of suspense in the last 100 pages too, which I actually really loved, and it was just so much fun. 5 stars. I'm so happy I read this one. And the last book I read was Hooked by Emily McIntyre, and this one unfortunately was a disappointment for me. I gave it 3 stars. It wasn't horrible, but I feel like it was trying too hard to be a dark romance, that it didn't really like flesh out the way it was supposed to and read cohesively and smoothly. So we have Hook, who is like this underworld person, like as in like the mafia kind of underworld. This is just a dark romance, it's not like paranormal or anything. And so he's a bad guy. He lost his family because of Peter, and Peter's daughter is Wendy, so Hook decides to get Wendy as punishment for Peter, and it's like they're feuding thing, whatever. And so he is someone who like cuts off people's tongues and thinks Wendy is like not trustworthy actually, and Wendy's just this very, very naive, flat character. There's no development in their romance, and he does really awful things to her, pretty much kidnaps her, and she just says, oh, it was a misunderstanding, it's fine. And he does no groveling, and I feel like at the end, like 20 pages was literally spent to explain literally everything. And I was like, that was a lot, and I feel like we needed a lot more background, especially with Wendy's character. She was just very flat to me, and I didn't really care about this romance at all. So I gave it 3 stars. I feel like that's generous giving it 3 stars, but I'm excited to read book 2 because it's a very different setting, and I've heard it's a lot better. And those are all the books that I read in the second half of January. Let me know if you've read any of these and what your thoughts are. I would love to hear. As always, thank you so much for watching, and have a good day. Bye.